Alright, what's going on, guys? We are at that point again in the video game cycle where the major blockbuster releases have wrapped up for a time. And specifically for the purposes of this channel, we're looking at From Software. Elden Ring DLC has come and gone. The marketing is done for that. There is no more content coming out for that game. So now we find ourselves looking towards the future, asking, what's coming next? And when will we find out about it? Well, today we're going to try to answer those questions and go down the rabbit hole once again of some good old speculation. Because we are coming up on that time of the year once again where the major announcements of what's coming in the next year are about to take place. But as always, as we get into everything today, if you want to stay up to date on all things From Software, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and now let's begin. Let's start off today with a bit of recent buzz, talking about some rumors about what might come next. There has been a lot of speculation that our next release by From Software will be more Armored Core content, and we have a lot of reason to think that, as they have directly confirmed that they're continuing with the Armored Core franchise, that AC6 was a new revival for it, and there will be more games to come. From Software still list mech design as one of their priorities in hiring new artists, and have straight up said that with AC6 they now know where to take it and what to do next. Now, something we're going to talk about more later on in this video is that we have reason to believe that From Software is going back to annual releases. Elden Ring dropped in 2022, Armored Core 6 came out in 2023, and the Elden Ring DLC came out in 2024. So for a new release to happen in 2025, with how many resources they pumped into Elden Ring initially, I don't think there's been enough time to create a new full game. So Armored Core DLC would fit nicely on that release schedule. And there have been some rumors lately, coming from SteamDB. Now, if you don't know what SteamDB is, it's a public platform that anyone can view, where you can see internal file updates to the PC builds of games. We've used it to predict Elden Ring updates, even the Elden Ring DLC, fairly accurately, if you know what to look for. Now, over the last week, Armored Core 6 has undergone some internal updates, undergoing back-end development work, and what caught a lot of people's eye here is that you can see some of the updates were done to a DLC package. Now, a lot of people jumped at that immediately and said, oh, there's our sign for DLC. But hang on. If we actually check the number for this DLC package, we can see that it's the OST and art book that's been updated. Now, that was a telltale sign of the DLC about to drop for Elden Ring, but I think what's happening here is a different story. And that's because a few months ago, they actually dropped bonus tracks for the Armored Core 6 soundtrack, and those came out over on streaming services. So I think what's most likely happening here is that they're updating the OST that was a downloadable package for pre-ordering the game, just actually in context of the game itself. I don't think this is a slam dunk for DLC, but it still could be, and it shows they are still working on the game, which is always good. We also have Secret Level coming out later this year, which is a video game anthology series on Amazon that'll be featuring an episode about Armored Core, starring Keanu Reeves, which is some very high-level marketing right there. Also another sign that they're probably not done with Armored Core just yet. Now, if Armored Core isn't their next project, then there's also a chance we see a smaller scale project kind of like Sekiro that isn't Elden Ring, isn't Dark Souls, isn't Armored Core, but still a From Software RPG. Miyazaki's really been driving home the point in interviews lately that there's going to be a lot of games not directed by him coming out of the studio, allowing new directors to get their time to shine, where we can see a new take on From Software. Personally, I would be really excited for that because I want to see new fresh ideas from them, because we don't know what we could get. From Software has always been at their best when they're experimental, and I don't think that's about to change. Now, realistically, if we are to get a game like this next, I personally wouldn't expect it until at least late 2025. If they did have a separate team working on this that wasn't working on Elden Ring DLC or Armored Core, then that gives them about a 3-year dev cycle, which is still small, but enough. But now that we've kind of touched on the ideas of what could be coming in the immediate future, when might we see it for the first time? Now, as we said at the beginning, we're coming up on the holiday season, and around this time of the year is when all the big game award shows take place. These are typically when the biggest announcements of the upcoming games happen, and of course now with From Software's stopping power in their name, they are the prime candidates for that. So let's take a look at what we have coming up. Now, to no one's surprise, the biggest game show of the year, the Game Awards, is coming soon. It is one of the most watched events of the year across the entire internet, and is the absolute prime time for marketing new games. When it comes to this specific event in 2024, Elden Ring DLC will absolutely be up for a few awards, which means there's a pretty high chance that Miyazaki and the team will be in attendance. However, as we saw last year, Armored Core 6 was up for an award, won Best Action Game, but Miyazaki was not there to claim that award. most likely due to them being too busy on Elden Ring DLC. However, I think this year is a different story. As we talked about earlier, the two most likely candidates for what they have next on their release schedule would not be directed by Miyazaki. Since Elden Ring DLC finished development, he's been much more active at game shows such as Summer Games Fest, so I think there's a good chance they have something to show now. As we've seen in the past, FromSoftware and Jeff Keighley, the host of the Game Awards, have a very good relationship. When they have a new announcement to make, they do tend to support Keighley's shows. Now, of course, they were not there in 2023, but Armored Core 6 had just released, and that was only 2 months before the Game Awards, so the marketing for that game was still in full effect. They weren't ready to show Elden Ring DLC at that time. But again, 2024 is likely to be a different story. Since Elden Ring DLC released back in June, that's a 6-month gap, plenty of time for them to have some kind of presentation on their next project. So I do think there's a pretty good chance we're going to see an announcement at the Game Awards, whether that's for Armored Core DLC, their next smaller scale RPG, or something that takes us by surprise completely. But there is another thing we have to consider, something that has been humorously dubbed the Random Tuesday effect, where FromSoftware does not follow any rhyme or reason to their announcements and randomly drops them with no warning. And that is a very real phenomenon. We saw it with pretty much everything post Elden Ring, aside from the initial Armored Core trailer at the Game Awards in 2022. And the reason they can do that is because their name now has stopping power. It doesn't matter when, it doesn't matter where. If FromSoftware makes an announcement, people are going to see it and they're going to be interested. So that's entirely possible that they just randomly drop their next announcement with no warning through a Twitter and Instagram post or something on their YouTube channel. And over the past 3 years, that has actually been more common than dropping their trailers at game shows. Even so, I would bet on this year's Game Awards. The timing is just too perfect, if they are going to have a release in 2025. Now, if that doesn't happen, then as we always see, there's going to be a marketing break until Lunar New Year, and I wouldn't get your hopes up until about mid-February. That's just how it goes. And if that doesn't happen, the big push after that is around summertime when GDC takes place. We saw this with Elden Ring DLC when the marketing push for that really picked up around that time, starting around March. But that's about the best timeline we can look at for now. With all that though, I don't think it's going to be a long wait. What also happens around this time of year are leaks. Insiders are going to pick up wind of release schedules. The holiday season is when this happens as well. Whether or not you agree with the ethics of leaks or think it's a bad thing for the industry, it happens regardless. There was just a leak yesterday that an Elden Ring Definitive Edition could be coming to Switch 2. As always, take it with a grain of salt, but I'm just giving you an example of what happens. Either way, when do you think we're going to see FromSoftware's next game? Personally, I'm optimistic that we could see it in the next month or two, most likely at the Game Awards. Are you team TGA or are you team Random Tuesday? Y'all let me know down below. With all that though, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it and subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all things FromSoftware. But with all that, I will catch you in the next one.